here's my story. Several months ago, I was watching Joe Rogan, but I really don't recommend that much. But occasionally, he has some very intriguing, intelligent guests. So in this particular day, he was interviewing Mel Gibson. And Mel Gibson was telling him about his 92-year-old father who was at death's door. And he had heard about this stem cell clinic down in Panama, and he took him down there, and he made an amazing recovery, and he was completely vital and had a normal lifestyle in which he was very energetic after that. Now, sitting next to Mel Gibson was Dr. Neil Reardon, who was the founder of the stem cell clinic in Panama. There's a picture of him. So then Rogan derailed the conversation, so that was about it for that. So then I realized, well, he's a moron. He loves chiropractors too, right? So Neil Reardon, he has a book, a great book. It's called Stem Cell Therapy. And after reading it 3 times, I began to realize that this is something that people don't know about. Stem cells is one of those terms like chiropractic, like immune system, that everybody uses that most people can't define. So you'll learn what it means by reading Neil's book. The type of stem cell therapy they do in Panama is illegal in the United States, but that's because it works too well. It is a threat to the pharmaceutical industry. It would actually be a threat to many branches of organized medicine, including the arthritis industry, that dealing with cardiovascular disease, joint replacements, and many other areas of American medicine. Okay, so in my January newsletter, I give a much better description of my trip down there and the whole story than I'm giving now. This is just a short introduction. So anyway, when you go down there, you get 120 million live birth umbilical tissue stem cells infused into you, right? Now, here are some of the people that have had dramatic cures for the last 15 years. This is just some of the types of cases that this stem cell clinic gets. All sorts of arthritis, autistic kids, autoimmune cases like ankylosing spondylitis, MS, RA, non-cancerous bone conditions, spinal cord and brain injuries, cerebral palsy, heart disease, chronic digestive disorders, and anti-aging. These are just a few. Now, the majority of these people, they get dramatic recoveries. I mean, people are flying from all over the world to this clinic, and it's very expensive, and I don't think insurance covers it. I really don't. The stories that I heard people tell me, I summarized them in the article. Okay, now think about this list for a minute and consider the options available to you if you go to Kaiser or an American hospital. What treatments would be available there? Antibiotics, steroids, other drugs, surgeries. So I'm sure that many people in this room have personal experience about these types of inadequacies. Now I have to ask your indulgence for a minute. I have to tell you a story. I've only told this to one person. This is Beaujolais. He's in a big pasture near my house, right? This summer, toward the end of the summer, I had to go up there every single day to supplement him. We're having a drought in the north. It's still going on. He's out in the pasture, you got to catch him and everything, but the dirt there, it's so dry and it's being pulverized by horses all the time. It's like talcum powder. It's a really fine powder, and it's everywhere. So I was breathing in this, every single day all summer. And I started to develop this intermittent cough. Sometimes it would get worse. And I never connected it. I never figured it out. Okay, but I had this intermittent cough all summer. The week before Christmas, I was invited to my friend's house in Vegas. My friends are all doctors. They're multimillionaires. They live in mansions. They have the best Lamborghini sports cars. They have a lot of boats. They live near Lake Mead. And they have a lot of money. Like most doctors, they are not interested in health. They are not interested in nutrition. They know nothing about either. It's not their field, okay? They work very hard. They work all day and they party all night. The other thing I should tell you here is they never cook a meal for dinner in their house. They never cook anything in their house. So every single night they go out to a restaurant in Vegas. But the problem is, since they don't know anything about nutrition, they go to the worst, lowest ghetto type of restaurants all the time. The day before I was supposed to return to the Bay Area, they called me up and said, "Oh, we're down here at Red Lobster. Come and join us." I go, "Joy." So I get in my pickup truck, I drive down there. They're all kind of like finishing up. So I had to order something quick. I ordered the snapper, which is totally frozen. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. You know, it's like eating cardboard or something. But they were in a hurry, so I wolfed it down. I ate very fast. They said, "Now we're going bowling across the street at Boulder Station." You know, we're in Henderson, right? "We're going bowling. The kids want to go bowling." I said, "Okay, great." So they all left in their vehicles and they said, "We'll meet you over there." I go, "Okay, cool. I'll be over there." So I go out, I get in my pickup truck, and I drive to Boulder Station across the street. I'm in the left turn lane, waiting to turn into the parking lot at Boulder Station. All of a sudden, my mouth fills with blood, and I couldn't breathe. And so I opened up the door and I spat it out on the ground. And then it happened again. It was the longest left turn light. Then I rolled down the window and it kept on happening. So then finally the light changed. I drove into the parking lot as fast as I could. And it's an enormous parking lot, so I headed for the far end of the parking lot where there was nobody. It's completely empty away from everybody. I got out of the vehicle and I walked around the truck for about 10 minutes and the same thing kept happening. It was coming from my throat. I was expelling an enormous amount of arterial bright red blood. So, to tell you the truth, I actually thought that I was going to bleed out then, at that point. It finally subsided a bit, enough for me to catch my breath. I got back in the truck and just sat there trying to calm down. Now, if you would have walked up to the truck at that time and walked around it, it looked like someone had just slaughtered a goat. That's what it looked like. It was biblical. At no time did it ever occur to me to dial 911. And why is that? Why was that? Because over the years, I have developed this knowledge of the holistic paradigm and what it really means. And when you consider your alternative, if I had gone to Kaiser with this type of a problem, especially with the COVID hysteria going on, what they would have done to me. Over the years, I've done many, many consultations with patients, and the stories that I have of what doctors actually do to people for different conditions. And then Bergman's one of my best friends, and Bergman has done thousands of these, and the stories he tells are unbelievable. You know, none of this went through my mind, but it's just, I thought about it later, and it's like I never even considered going to a hospital at that time. So now I have a question before I go on. For everyone in this room, as poorly as I have just described my situation, ask yourself silently, what would you have done in that situation? And be honest. Now, I don't want to give the impression here that I'm recommending my course of action for anyone else in a similar situation. Far from it. It's just that years of listening to thousands of patients describe their experiences have led me to an unbounded confidence in the healing power of nature and a fundamental mistrust for organized medicine. That's always my default position. This philosophy is certainly not for everyone. What I did was, I turned the truck on and I drove home back up into the hills to the mansion, which of course was empty because everybody's bowling, right? So I go into my bedroom, close the door, and just tried to quiet down. A little more blood coming out, but it was under control now. The problem was, the next day I had to fly back to the Bay Area with my little goddaughter. Somehow we made it. I went home to my house, and for 8 days, I was very quiet and subdued. I got some kind of illness. I was very weak. I just did a juice fast for 8 days and all my supplements. And I took a round of amoxicillin. And I never take antibiotics, but it had a dramatic effect after 2 or 3 days. Indicating what? Yes. He just said something that no medical doctor knows. Probable bacterial infection. Okay. So it kind of worked. Okay, the amazing thing was, in about 8 days, I was practically fine. I was exercising again. No more problems. 2 days after that, I was scheduled to fly down to Panama, right? But here's the problem. Panama is the only country that requires you to get a COVID test 48 hours before you get on the plane. So I went to this stupid kiosk at the mall, right? They shoved the thing up my nose, right? So, I was just really sick, and I had all these antibiotics in me. I go, there's no way I'm passing this thing. Negative. So next day, I go to SFO, get on the freaking plane for Panama, right? So I took a picture of this paper with my phone so it'd be small as possible, right? Arrive in Panama. There's this nurse person or whatever sitting at this little table off the jetway, and she's who you're supposed to give your COVID test to, right? So I showed her my phone. Turns out she doesn't read or speak English. So she goes, doctor, doctor. And there was a doctor like on the other side of the room, and he goes like this. And that was the end of my COVID screening for the country of Panama. The point of that story is that this entire thing is fantasy. It's the COVID testing is completely unreliable and false, but it's a huge industry. Bear with me, people. I'm drawing to the end here. Now, how many of you ever saw the movie with Johnny Depp, Blow, and the one with Tom Cruise where he's Barry Seals, the airplane? That is real. Those were extremely well done movies. That's 100% factual. We built the cocaine towers. We did that. It was their coke, but our money, right? So I've been to Panama several times. I kind of know the place, but now it's on a lockdown 10 times worse than here. I was there for 5 days. I was not allowed to leave the hotel. Now, getting back to stem cell now, the stem cell clinic is on the 63rd floor, and my room was on the 18th floor. So now my objective has changed. Why? It's no longer just me interviewing the place because it's fascinating. I just had this bloodbath experience, and I'm thinking, wow, there might be something wrong with me. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to have this expensive stem cell therapy, which consists of 3 infusions, 40 million mesenchymal stem cells each treatment. It only takes like 20 minutes. 3 days in a row. That's what everybody else flying in from all over the world, everybody gets the same treatment. But right before they gave me my first infusion, they took blood out of my arm, and they did the most comprehensive blood work I've ever had in my life. Not just a complete blood chemistry, but a couple tests for HIV, tests for Hep B, Hep C, toxoplasmosis, a bunch of other diseases, many blood markers, specific parasites, a very comprehensive liver panel and antibody test. It was 4 pages of results. Amazingly, when I got the results back, I was completely normal in all normal ranges with no positives. I'm going, damn, I wonder what that was. Okay, now I got to tell you, you got to buy Neil's book, okay? He does it chapter by chapter, and he tells the types of cases that recover. I mean, the majority of these people get cured. They really get cured. No wonder it's illegal in the States. They have a whole chapter on telomere extension. Now, you remember from school that your chromosomes are responsible for generating the DNA, your new DNA for your new cells, right? And that comes off the tips of the chromosomes called telomeres. Now, as we age, and all the millions of copies that your chromosomes have to produce during your lifetime, eventually the telomeres begin to shrink, creating less perfect copies as time goes by, right? So in Neil's book, I couldn't believe it. I was astounded. He did before and after studies using mesenchymal stem cell therapy, showing that in some people it actually lengthened observably the telomeres. So I was thinking about, here's Ponce de Leon, 500 years ago, looking for the fountain of youth. Here's the real fountain of youth. And the incredible thing is, this technology is only in its infancy right now. I'm not going to explain what mesenchymal stem cells are. Look at my January newsletter and get Neil's book. But I will tell you this. I expected wrongly that if I got these infusions, that these undifferentiated mesenchymal stem cells would triage my body to find out what were the problem tissues, and they would differentiate into those specific tissue types and cure me. And that's what I thought was going on with all these people flying in from everywhere. That's wrong. It's 100% wrong. What's true is, first of all, these researchers who have been creating this technology over the last 15 years, they'll be the first to tell you, we really don't know how it works for all these people. But what we do know is that the mesenchymal stem cells, once they get in your body, they produce what are called trophic factors, which are growth factors, which have 3 observable consequences. Number 1, the reduction of inflammation, immune modulation, so your body stops attacking its own cells, and finally, normal cell proliferation. Now let's think about that for a second. Chronic inflammation is the key element to virtually all disease, right? It's the first phase in any tissue degeneration. So just think if you could get a treatment in 3 days that for 6 months or even 3 months could end all inflammation in your entire body, what kind of a chance would you have to recover from some chronic disease that you've had for years? And that's really the mechanism of success for many of these people. Please read my January newsletter. That's all I'm going to say about stem cells for tonight.
So this is the last of a 6-part series of videos that we made from one lecture in Orange County. This is part number 6. So here are some concluding remarks about that entire series of 6.
In conclusion, the government is too much in our lives today. I ask this question: why must our lives be suspended indefinitely while the bureaucrats of the world pull off the greatest coup d'etat of all time? There's only one reason for that. We let it happen. They created this state religion for people dumb enough to believe in a disease that doesn't exist. So what can we do? What can we really do? I'm not really completely on board with light up the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. I'm not completely on board with that. I recommend that all of you people who own guns, that you familiarize yourself with them. Go out to the desert every month or so. I also recommend that you people who don't have guns, Las Vegas, it's Mecca. One short idea about taxes.
Now, since the new regime has arbitrarily decided that they're going to disregard an entire body of constitutional law
that has to do with election challenging, they've just thrown that whole thing out the window.
So why should we pay taxes when these people are choosing which federal laws they're going to observe and which they're going to disregard?
Next thing, I already talked about homeschool. Sit next to your kids watching fake school and inform yourself about the incredible value of homeschools. Also, deprogram your kid. Once you realize your kid is being brainwashed, talk to him. I mean, you don't have to shove your politics down his throat, but just talk to him about American history, the Revolutionary War, the beginning of history. Kids don't know any of this stuff. They need to know the value of this country that we live in. And finally, consider this. What tens of thousands of people, the mass exodus from California. This is the worst place to live in the United States, right here in New York, right? I also know several other countries where they have beautiful and stress-free environments. Excellent. I would like to conclude with my last slide here, a quote from Leo Tolstoy. Quote, "The millions submit themselves to the power of their oppressors, cutting their own throats, giving away their own freedom, putting the yoke on their own neck, not only agreeing with their oppressors, but searching for him." You guys are the greatest. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.